When you were 13 years old and you were on bed rest for about a year, you made a promise to God. What was that promise?
Well, I was told that I couldn't play ball anymore. Couldn't lift weights, which I didn't mind that, but I couldn't go to school. I stayed out of school a year. Couldn't walk up steps. Couldn't do anything strenuous. I had rheumatic fever, which back then was awful. Now I don't hear that much about it anymore. It's probably got another name, or they've got a better way of handling it. But it's a heart disease, and so anyway, God cured me, and I had prayed and asked Him if He would heal me and let me play. I'd try to serve Him any way I could.
Fast forward a lot of years, and you ended up at Florida State.
Yeah.
And I read in your book that you didn't really think that you were going to be there that long.
Oh.
What changed your mind?
Well, I didn't come there with the idea of staying. There's no doubt about it. Well, Florida State was at the bottom of the heap. They'd been, well, gosh, they were 0-11. I think 1-10, 3-8, and the coach gets fired. I take the job. We were coaching at West Virginia University. Mm-hmm. I've been up there 10 years. Well, I'm not from there. I'm from Alabama. I'm from Georgia. I'm from Florida. That's where I've coached. So Ann and I just decided we want to come back home. And Florida State was not winning any ball games or going to any bowl, so we'll go back down there, break in, renew acquaintances, and end up back over in Alabama where I'm from.
And you did. You got offered a job at Alabama, and you turned that down.
Yeah, well, they turned me down first. In 1987, we were playing in Birmingham in the Hall of Fame Bowl, and the head coach of Alabama left, and I thought they were going to hire me. I think I would have been popular choice. That's what I understand. But the president had other ideas, and he brought in somebody else who was an excellent coach. And then when he left 4 years later, then I think I could have had the job. Hootie Ingram, who was the athletic director, who I had hired here as athletic director at one time, called me and said I would be his choice, you know. But I told him I think I was 60 at that time. That was too old.
So you thought you'd just wait it out and stay
Yeah,
at
plus
Florida State.
we were winning more games than them by that time.
I know that, you had planned to stay at Florida State for one more year after your 2009 season.
Yeah.
And you had spent so many years with them. Were you hurt by the way that things kind of played out?
Oh, yeah, gosh, yeah. And yet they had a right to do what they were doing. I mean, the president and the board, they had a right to make the decision, and we were not winning enough games. It's funny. You think, you say, well, y'all were losing. No, we never had a losing season. But 7-6, they don't like.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, when I came here, they averaging one game a year, and the worst I had was 7, But anyway, I had 34 years, and I wanted to get one more, 35, but it was, when things like that happen, I always feel like it's God's will. That's what God wants. And He's in charge, and things have worked out pretty good since then. I've enjoyed speaking all over the country.
What did you feel was your biggest role as a coach? Was it to win football games, or was it to be a role model for your players? Or
Well, you have to win football games to keep your job. You got to win the darn games. Somebody else could be coaching them boys. So winning is very big. And but you can win the right way, and I thought we did that. We won the right way. We didn't cheat to get there.
What about when you lost? What was your reaction when you lost?
Oh, I hated it. It hurt. Losses kill you. Losses hurt more than winning helps. Winning's nice, but it's not as good. It's not as good as that is bad. You know what? And so when you lose, I usually fret that night. Couldn't sleep well. And then the next day start getting ready for the next opponent. And so full speed ahead.
How do you feel about people paying college football players to play?
I think they deserve it. Yeah, no doubt. See, when I was in school, we got paid.
Did you really?
Did you know that?
I did not know that.
No, I was in school in the 40s and the 50s. And back in those days, you got room, board, tuition, book, fees, and $15 a month.
Because it's a job.
Yeah.
And it takes up all your time.
That's just what a scholarship was, $15 a month. It was called laundry money. but you got $15 cash. Do what you want to with it. Well, look, that $15 back in 50, that'd be $150 today, you know. Yeah. But they stopped doing it in 1973 because the nation was going through an economic tough time. And so scholarships were going to take that $15 away. We ain't got enough money. And they did, and we hadn't had it since. Now, like I say, do I think they deserve it? I sure do. But it's not going to happen, because if you do it for them, there's girls soccer, there's girls basketball, there's men's soccer, there's men's wrestling. They want it too. You know what? So if you do it for them, you've got to do it for all of them.
What's the hardest part about retirement?
Hardest part about retirement? Mm-hmm. Oh, I tell you, I went through withdrawals for a couple of years. I mean, you know, you coach Fitz, I graduated from college. The next year, I spent 57 straight years coaching, not out of it, 57 years. Then all of a sudden, you don't do that anymore. And I make talks now. That's what I do. I speak all the time, and I enjoy doing it. Speak to churches a lot, speak to prayer breakfasts, speak to Fellowship of Christian Athletes more than anybody. Mm-hmm. Then I speak to corporations. Well,
you and Joe Paterno had quite a race for a long time. What do you think Joe Paterno's legacy is to football today?
Well, his football in legacy is one of the best ever. Mm-hmm. In fact, I always thought, in fact, I predicted, and they put it in the paper up in Penn State, that when Joe retires, he'll be recognized as the greatest coach ever, because number one, he coached longer than anybody, and he always graduated his kids and kept them out of trouble pretty good. And Joe was just the epitome of a successful coach, you know. Then that dreadful thing happened. Ooh, I hate it. So, gosh, I don't know. I hate that. I'll always remember him for the good things. You know what? Mm-hmm. Guy won a lot of doggone games, and he won them fairly.
Well, I think a lot of people would argue that you're the greatest coach in football history. And what do you want your legacy to be? Oh,
I used to get asked that question all the time. People would think he's going to say, that I was a great coach or I was one of the best. I would want my legacy to be that I served God's purpose for my life. If I serve His purpose, I done went to begging. Them others don't mean nothing. You know what? Yeah. If I lost that one, I ain't going there now.
Well, I think it's fair to say that you've won it.
Yeah. I mean, I've got faith enough I know what He says to do, and that's what I'm going to do.